Shocking TV meltdown when a Southern comedy queen snaps on live TV. You won't believe what happened next. Buckle up, folks, because we're diving into a jaw-dropping moment that set the internet on fire. Imagine this: a beloved Southern comedian known for her warm, family-friendly humor steps onto one of the biggest stages in late night TV. The crowds buzz and the hosts all smiles, and everyone's expecting a cozy, laugh-filled chat. But then, boom, things take a wild turn, spiraling into one of the most unforgettable confrontations in TV history. This wasn't just a clash, it was a full-on reckoning, raw and unfiltered, right there on national television. By the end, jaws were on the floor, social media was ablaze, and people couldn't stop talking about it. Want to know what really went down? Keep reading, because this story's got more twists than a soap opera, and trust me, you'll want every single detail. Oh, and don't forget to drop your thoughts in the comments. What do you think happened? Let's get into it. The stage was set at the Tonight Show with its iconic blue curtains and that familiar electric vibe. The audience was hyped, practically vibrated with excitement. They'd come to see Leanne Morgan, the Southern comedy darling, who'd won hearts with her relatable down-home humor about marriage, kids, and small-town life. Her Netflix specials were smash hits. Her tour was selling out arenas, and her fans, loyal as they come, were ready to eat up every word. Leanne walked out to a wave of applause. Her signature big hair bouncing, her smile as warm as a Tennessee summer. She waved at the crowd, soaking in the love, and settled into the guest chair across from Jimmy Fallon, the king of late-night charm. Leanne Morgan. Everybody, Jimmy bellowed, arms flung wide like he was welcoming an old friend. The crowd roared louder, some fans even standing. So good to have you here. I've been watching your specials, and I gotta say, you're one of the funniest people out there right now. Leanne, ever the gracious Southern lady, beamed. Well, thank you, Jimmy. That's mighty sweet of you. I'm just thrilled to be here sitting on this fancy set with you. The audience chuckled. Already charmed, Jimmy leaned his grin wide. So your new tour is selling out everywhere. Congrats. What's it like going from tiny comedy clubs to massive theaters? Leanne laughed, her drawl thick and comforting like a warm hug. Oh, honey, it's surreal. I remember playing rooms with 12 people, and half of them were my cousins. Bless their hearts. Now I walk out to these huge crowds and think y'all sure you meant come see me. You didn't take a wrong turn at the gas station, did you? The audience burst into laughter, clapping like they just heard the gospel truth. Jimmy was loving it, slapping his desk. That's amazing. In your comedy, it's so relatable. You talk about marriage, your kids, everyday life. Where do you get all that material? Well, Jimmy, Leanne said, settling back. I've been married over 30 years, got 3 kids. And let me tell you, they give me more material than I can keep up with. My husband's the most patient man alive. He has to be living with me. The crowd laughed again, eating it up. Jimmy nodded, still grinning. And you're from Tennessee, right? Small town girl. Yes, sir, Leanne replied, proudly born and raised in a town of about 2,000 folks. And that's counting the dogs and the chickens. Another wave of laughter rolled through the studio. Everything was going perfectly. Leanne was in her element. The audience was hooked, and Jimmy was playing the perfect host. But then, like a storm cloud rolling in on a sunny day, the mood shifted. Jimmy's tone changed, a smile turning just a touch sharper. So, Leanne, he started leaning forward. Your comedy's very wholesome, very family-friendly. Do you ever feel like you're holding yourself back by staying in that lane? I mean, some of the biggest comedians out there, they push boundaries, go dark, get gritty. Everything about trying not to question landed like a brick. Leanne's smile flickered just for a second, but she held her composure. Well, Jimmy, she set her voice steady. I don't think I'm holding myself back at all. I tell stories that are true to me, stories folks relate to. That's what connects with people. They see their own lives of mine. Jimmy nodded, but he didn't let it go. Right. But don't you think comedy is supposed to push buttons, make people uncomfortable? Sometimes the audience's laughter faded, replaced by a tense murmur. Leanne's Southern drawl deepened a sign. She wasn't backing down. I think comedy is about making people laugh, Jimmy. And there's more than one way to do that. I don't need to curse or shock anybody. My life's plenty funny. Without all that, Jimmy leaned back, a smirk creeping onto his face. Okay, but be honest, do you think clean comedy gets the same respect as the edgier stuff? When people talk about the greats, they think of risk-takers, comics who make audiences gas the studio. When quiet, you could have heard a pin drop. Leanne's posture stiffened, her eyes narrowing slightly. Too safe. She repeated, her voice low and deliberate. Are you seriously sitting there telling me my comedy's too safe? Jimmy's confidence wavered, but he tried to play it off in just a skin. I mean, you gotta admit you play it pretty safe up there. Leanne leaned forward, her gaze locked on him like a hawk. Let me tell you something about safe, Jimmy. I spent years perfecting my craft. I've played rooms where nobody wanted to laugh, where folks sat there with their arms crossed daring me to fail. And I won them over every single time, not by being shocking, but by being real. So don't you sit there and tell me I'm playing it safe when you don't know the first thing about what it takes to do what I do. Jimmy shifted in his seat, clearly rattled. Okay, maybe we're getting a little off track here. No, Leanne cut him off. Her voice sharp as a knife. We're right on track. You brought this up. So let's have the conversation you wanted. The audience was frozen, unsure if this was part bit or a real showdown unfolding live. Jimmy tried to laugh it off, but the tension was thicker than molasses. The band members exchanged nervous glances, and even the camera crew seemed to hold their breath. Look, Leanne, Jimmy said, forcing a smile, I didn't mean to offend you. I'm just saying, comedy's evolving. You got to take risks to stay. Relevant. Leanne raised an eyebrow, her voice dripping with defiance. Oh, honey, trust me, standing here as a 50-something Southern woman talking about menopause and motherhood in a world obsessed with shock value. That is the risk. The audience erupted into applause, loud and spontaneous, like they'd been waiting for someone to say it. Jimmy's smile faltered completely in that moment. Everyone watching knew this wasn't just another interview, it was a battle. And Leanne Morgan was not here to lose. Stay. Relevant. Jimmy, Leanne repeated, leaning forward again. My last special dropped 6 months ago, and it's still in Netflix's top 10. My tour's adding dates left and right, because the demands at high. Tell me what part of that sounded relevant to you. Jimmy's face flushed, his usual charm crumbling. That's not what I meant, he stammered. I'm talking about artistic growth, evolving. As a comedian. Leanne's eyes flashed. My comfort zone. She echoed her tone razor sharp. You think talking about real life, being a wife, a mother, a woman in a world that stops valuing you after 40 is a comfort zone. You think that's easy. The audience went dead silent. A few people in the front row covered their mouths, torn between shock and awe. Jimmy's face was now a deep shade of red. Okay, he said, his voice shaky. I think that a little unfair. I work hard on this show. Leanne didn't miss a beat. I'm sure you do, she said, her sarcasm cutting like a blade. But don't come at me about playing it safe when you've never had to do what I do. Stand-up comedy ain't safe, Jimmy. It's terrifying every single night. Jimmy try to steer the ship back to calmer waters. All right, let's move on. Tell us about your family, your kids. But Lynn wasn't having it. No, Jimmy, you started this. You wanted to talk about my comedy not being edgy enough, so let's finish it. Jimmy glanced off stage, probably praying for a producer to save him, but no one stepped in. This was live TV, and the train was officially off the tracks. I just think, Jimmy said carefully, maybe you're limiting your audience by keeping things so wholesome. Some people might skip your shows thinking it's all sunshine and rainbows. Leanne let out a short, humorless laugh. Sunshine and rainbows, Jimmy. Have you even watched my specials, or are you just reading off your team's cue cards? Jimmy's silence was deafening. That's what I thought, Leanne said, shaking her head. You don't respect what I do, you think, because I don't drop F-bombs or talk about sex and drugs. My comedy doesn't count, that it's lesser, that it's easy. That's not true, Jimmy protested, but his voice lacked conviction. It absolutely is, truly, and fired back. And what's disappointing is I expected better from you. You built your career on being likable, the nice guy, and now you're sitting here trying to tear me down for doing the same thing. The audience was glued to their seats. Some had their phones out, ignoring the no recording rule, knowing this moment was going viral before the show even ended. Jimmy looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. I think we should take a break, he said weakly. Oh, now you want a break, Leanne snapped. Now that you've realized you stepped in it. No, Jimmy, you wanted this conversation in front of your audience. We're finishing it right here. Jimmy's producers were probably having heart attacks off stage, but Leanne was a force of nature, and no one was stopping her. Leanne, I'm sorry if I upset you, Jimmy said, his voice barely holding together. That wasn't my intention. Your intention, Leanne shot back, was to make me look like some small-town act who doesn't get real comedy. But let me tell you something, Jimmy. I've earned every bit of my success. I've worked harder than you could imagine, and I don't need your approval to know what I do matters. Jimmy tried again. I never said it didn't matter, but you implied it. Leanne interrupted, her voice rising. When you called my comedy too safe, when you said I needed to push boundaries to be taken seriously, you were saying him not enough. The room fell silent again, the weight of her words hanging heavy. Jimmy looked genuinely shaken, had done countless interviews, handled every kind of awkward moment. But this was differently, and wasn't joking or backing down. She was standing her ground, and the audience could feel the fire in her words. Leanne, I think you're misunderstanding me, Jimmy said, his voice softer now. I have a lot of respect for you. Leanne tilted her head. Do you, though? Because respect means doing your homework. Respect means not envying someone on your show just to belittle their work. Respect means recognizing that they're a different kind of comedy, and they're all valid. Jimmy nodded, quickly stumbling over his words. You're right. You're absolutely right. I should have prepared better. I should have watched your specials. Yes, you should have, Leanne said, her voice steady. But this Ain't just about preparation, Jimmy. It's about how women in comedy get treated by interviewers, by critics, by the whole industry. We get asked different questions than men. We get judged by different standards. And I'm sick of it. A murmur rippled to the crowd. Several women in the audience nodded, some visibly emotional. When a man gets on stage and talks about his family, his life, Leanne continued, her voice growing stronger. People call him observational, relatable, brilliant, but when a woman does, and she's told she's playing it safe, that she's not edgy enough, you see the double standard. Jimmy shifted uncomfortably. I hear you, he said, but his voice was weak to you. Leanne pressed her eyes, never leaving his, because I've heard this my whole career. People tell me I need to be more like this comic, or that one, that I should be dirtier, meaner, louder, anything. But me, and for years, I believed him. I thought maybe my voice wasn't good enough. Her voice cracked raw and real, and the audience leaned, in hanging on every word. But then I realized, Leanne said, her tone firm again, there's nothing wrong with me. What's wrong is a system that keeps telling women they have to change who they are, succeed, that our lives ain't interesting enough, that our stories ain't funny enough, that we ain't enough. The audience broke into applause, slow at first, then building into a thunderous roar. Leanne gave a small nod, but her eyes stayed on Jimmy. I came here tonight, excited to talk about my tour, she said, her voice calm but unyielding to share stories, to laugh with your audience. Instead, I'm having to defend my choices, my style, my career. And that ain't okay, Jimmy. Jimmy looked down at his desk as usual, quick. Gone, you're right. He said, quietly, I messed this up. I'm sorry. Leanne studied him for a moment. Are you sorry you did it? Or sorry you got called out? Jimmy took a long breath. I'm sorry. I did it, truly. I let my assumptions get away, and I disrespected you. That was wrong. Leanne looked at him, weighing his words. The room was so quiet, you could hear the hum of the studio lights. Hair race, what bothers me most, she said, finally, I bet you've had male comedians on this show who do clean material. Jim Gaffigan, Brian Reagan, Jerry Seinfeld. Did you ever ask them if they were being too safe? Jimmy's mouth opened, then closed. He didn't answer. He didn't need to know you didn't, Leanne said, because they're men, and men get the benefit of the doubt. They get to be themselves without having to justify. The audience was spellbound, watching a moment that was more than an interview. It was a stand for every woman who'd ever been underestimated, him not trying to destroy you, Jimmy. Leanne said, her tone softening. Just a touch, him trying to make you understand what it's like to be a woman in this business. We have to prove ourselves every day in ways men never do. We have to be twice as good to get half the credit. And we still get asked if we're doing it right. Jimmy nodded, humbled. I understand. Or I'm starting to, and I'm sorry for my part in that. Leanne gave a small nod. I appreciate that, but an apology ain't enough. Actions matter, how you treat the next female comedian who sits in this chair. That's what matters, whether you've done your homework, whether you ask questions that show respect, whether you see her as an equal. I hear you, Jimmy said, his voice barely above a whisper. And it'll do better. Leanne studied him for a long moment, then made a decision that shocked everyone. You know what, Jimmy, she said, standing up, I appreciate your apology, but I don't think I can sit here anymore. The audience gasped a collective intake of breath. Jimmy's eyes widened. Leanne, please, he said, standing to. Don't leave, let's finish this. We did finish it, Leanne replied, unclipping her microphone. I said what I needed to say, but I'm not going to sit here and pretend everything's fine just because you said sorry. That's not how this works. Jimmy looked panicked, his producers gesturing wildly off stage. I respect your work. I really do, he pleaded. Please stay, we can talk about your tour. Anything you want. Leanne paused, her hand on the mic. Packed. Jimmy, the damage is done. You invited me here for a friendly interview, and instead you question my credibility. You don't just move past that like it never happened. We can make this right. Jimmy insisted. We can have a real conversation. Now, Leanne shook her head. We just had a real conversation. And honestly, I don't want to be here anymore. I'm not promoting my tour on a show where the host didn't even watch my work before criticizing it. That ain't respect. The studio was still the audience watching in stunned silence. Some had tears in their eyes. Others were barely breathing. I've been in this business a long time, Leanne continued, her voice strong. And I've learned you have to stand up for yourself. You have to draw lines. And my line is this: I won't be disrespected. Not on national TV. Not anywhere. Jimmy looked crushed, Leanne, and begging, you don't leave like this. Why not? Leanne turned to him, unflinching. Because it makes you look bad. Because people talk. Maybe they should talk. Maybe folks need to see what happens when someone gets disrespected, and there are consequences. It's not about me looking bad, Jimmy said, though his voice shook. It's about giving you a chance to share your work with the audience. They came to hear you. Leanne's expression softened as she turned to the crowd. I appreciate every one of y'all who came tonight. She said, sincerely, I'm sorry this didn't go the way we expected, but I hope you understand why I can't stay. One person in the front row started clapping then. Another, and soon the entire studio was on it. Feet cheering, some cry. It was a surreal moment, an audience applauding not a performance, but a boundary. Jimmy stood frozen. "This isn't how I wanted this to go," he murmured. "Then you should have prepared differently," Lynn said calmly. "You should have respected me enough to watch my comedy." Before tearing it down, she handed her microphone to a stage, and the band stayed silent. The cameras kept rolling. "Can I say one more thing?" Leanne asked, turning back to Jimmy. "Of course," he said, desperate for a lifeline. Leanne faced the camera, her voice steady, her eyes fierce. "To any young comedian watching this, especially the women, don't ever let anyone make you feel like your voice doesn't matter. Don't let anyone tell you you have to be someone else to succeed. Stay true to yourself. Tell your stories your way. And if someone disrespects you, you have every right to walk away." The room exploded in applause. Emotional and defiant people stood clapping through tears. Leanne turned to Jimmy one last time. "I hope you learn from this," she said. "I hope the next time a woman sits in that chair, you treat her the way she deserves, with respect, preparation, and the understanding that her comedy is just as valid as anyone else's." Jimmy swallowed hard. "I will," he said softly. "I promise." Lynn gave a small nod, then walked off stage, her heels echoing. As the crowd's cheers followed her, Jimmy sank into his chair. Looking lost, "We can take a break," he muttered, and the show cut to commercial. The aftermath was chaos. Clips of the showdown hit social media like a tsunami, racking up millions of views. Within hours, hashtags like Leanne Morgan and Respect Women in Comedy trended worldwide. Fans praised Leanne's courage, calling her a hero for standing up to the double standards women face. Some criticized Jimmy, accusing him of being unprepared and dismissive, while others defended him, saying he was just trying to spark a conversation late night. TV hadn't seen a moment this raw in years, and its spark heated. Debates about comedy, gender, and respect in the industry. Leanne's tour saw a massive surge in ticket sales, with fans flocking to support her. She later posted a statement online, thanking her supporters and reiterating her commitment to telling authentic stories. Jimmy issued a public apology, admitting had been wrong, and vowing to do better. Whether he'll keep that promise remains to be seen, but one thing's clear: Leanne Morgan's stand on the Tonight Show wasn't just a moment, it was a movement awake. Up call that echoed far beyond the studio walls. So what do you think? Was Leanne right to walk off? Did Jimmy cross a line? Or was he just doing his job? Drop your thoughts below, and let's keep this conversation going. This is one TV moment we won't forget anytime soon.